This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Let's face it, life after service ain't always easy. Far too many veterans continue to struggle in silence. But you don't have to fight this battle alone, because we are here to help. This ain't no group therapy. It's the after party to the battle. Full speed ahead, after battle. Real talk, real stories, no BS.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here with another episode of Full Speed Ahead After Battle. As always, I am your host, Josh McCabe, and we are on the Military Broadcast Radio, where we give veterans a voice. Make sure you tune in, like, subscribe, share, do all that good stuff. You can find me on YouTube at Full Speed Ahead After Battle. That's about the best place that you can follow along and tune in for all those shows that you missed, the upcoming shows, all that good stuff. Again, as always, make sure you like, subscribe, share. That way we get the message out there. And if one of these videos actually helped you, or if one of the videos in NBR in general helped you, make sure you drop those comments, because we like to hear back that, you know, we're helping our veterans out there. That's what we're here for. We want to help you guys, you ladies, you veterans, all of y'all. So make sure you do that for us. As always, on this show, we talk about that all-important transition from civilian life, or from military to civilian life, while we focus also on veteran suicide and mental health, because as we know, that transition is one of the toughest times in a veteran's life. That ultimately is one of the highest things that lead to that veteran suicide. And as we state the statistics every week, 22 veterans commit suicide. Now that has fluctuated over the years, but the 22 is what's stuck in people's minds. And when you start factoring in law enforcement and civilian suicides, that factor goes up to about 30 suicides in a 24-hour period. 30 suicides. That means within the hour of this show, it is highly possible that one person commits suicide. And that's why this show is here. That's why NBR is here. That's why everybody's here, is to help our veterans, to give them a voice, because sometimes coming on these shows and sharing our stories is what helps us get through the day, right? So let's talk about what's going on in the last week. There's a lot of negativity in the news, right? And normally we don't talk politics here, but we do need to point out there are a lot of shootings. Brown University, Bondi Beach, there's one in Syria, and a lot of these places, like Australia, is a gun-free zone supposed to be, right? Well, how is that helping out the civilians and the law-abiding citizens when you're banning guns in those areas? And we look and see what happened. Luckily, Bondi Beach, one gentleman did wrestle away a long rifle from one of the armed shooters, and did put a stop to that for a little bit. And people have taken to social media and raised, I believe it was just reported, $970,000 for his care, because he was shot a couple of times during that incident. So our thoughts and prayers are with him. Al Ahmed, So one of the people that actually stepped up to do something, great job, appreciate it. I hope more people in this world step up to put a stop to things like that. As far as that, let's get into some other bad news this week. Cowboys lost. I don't know what happened there. Our kicker was off his game. Everybody, I think they just got too confident going in against the Vikings. I mean, it was the 5-6 Vikings or something like that. Cowboys got too cocky going in, and they just couldn't pull it out. However, football was redeemed this week when Navy beat Army by 1 point. So go Navy, beat Army, accomplish that mission this weekend. If you don't know, Army-Navy is one of the biggest rivalries in the history of college football, probably just as well in the branches as well, right? Unfortunately, the Navy isn't alone on that team. We do have the Marines in there because they got to go to school somewhere, and somebody's got to teach them and train them. So why not go to the Naval Academy? But great job, everybody out there. The president was out there supporting Army Navy. It was good to see that. Good to see all the camaraderie that was built over the weekend. The branches come together. We give each other a hard time, but we come together for things like that. And there was a lot of good things that come out of that this weekend. Also over the weekend, Rees Across America. That is one of the groups that MBR actually sponsors. So a lot of organizations, VFW, American Legion, a lot of different groups, individuals are out there placing those wreaths on those grave sites of fallen veterans. So if you didn't get a chance to get out there and help out, there, plenty of time for next year, obviously. You can still donate to do that, or reach out to your local cemetery and see if that's something you can do for them. Wreaths Across America has been going on for a long time, and it's a great thing that they do. Also, Toys for Tots is coming to an end this year because Christmas is right around the corner. Can you believe Christmas is only 10 days away? And that means right after that, the end of 2025. Where has this year gone? So many things going on, right? Toys for Tots, my local VFW, we had a large donation from Fire Retardant Coatings of Texas. The company came in, that family donated $10,000 to Toys for Tots. And so a lot of the leadership at our VFW has been spending all weekend at local Walmarts and other stores with toys and buying off the shelves. And, it's not about the toys. It's about the giving back. It's about, just giving to those kids, those underprivileged kids, the ones that sometimes those families need help, and making sure that those kids' dreams and that magic, that Christmas magic, is there on Christmas morning. That's what that is all about. It's about making sure that kids still have something. Some of those family struggles. So there's still time to get your toys in there for the Toys for Tots. Contact your local Toys for Tots. Now, I do want to put this out. I don't like to speak negative about things. However, I did come across in my own community, a local store was doing their own Toys for Tots drive. Now, if anybody is doing a legit Toys for Tots drive, they'll have the box, they'll have the signage directly from the Toys for Tots Corporation or their local Marine Corps League, who does the local drives. This group did their own art sign, spray paint, glitter, all that. So it's not legit. Now, the way to go about that is, let's think about it. If they're taking toys away, maybe they are giving it to Toys for Tots. But all too often in this world, we know that sometimes that things don't go that way, right? So what you should do in this instance, if you find a location that is doing their own Toys for Tots and not for the Toys for Tots Corporation, contact your local Marine rep. You can find them on the Toys for Tots website, or contact your local law enforcement, and they would be able to reach out and assist you with that. Because if those toys are going somewhere else or being resold on Amazon or anything like that, that's taken away from that Christmas miracle. That's taken away from those kids waking up on Christmas Day. So those are the things that we need to watch out. I got a message from Terry Lynch, one of the great hosts here on NBR. She's been instrumental in wreaths across America. I know she was personally out there placing wreaths. You can volunteer and pick up the wreaths after the holiday. That way you can keep those either for next year, or if you just want to have them as a sentimental piece, you're welcome to do that. So really, that's all that's really happening last week. For anybody that's been tuning in over the last few weeks, I tried to give some medical updates from my old man. He's going through his cancer, stage 2 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He got the port in, been doing medication. He's finally getting to that spot where he's kind of getting sick and not feeling so well. And if anybody that's dealt with cancer, they know that all too well. The interesting thing is his nephews, my cousins, his brother's sons, they have a daughter. And she went through brain cancer when she was just a toddler. And so she went through it. She's now giving him advice on how to handle cancer. Coming from a child that grew up with it, with brain cancer, kind of studied the growth, things like that. She's giving an old retired veteran advice on how to do it. Let's face it, folks, these kids are more resilient than most adults, right? They go through some of the worst things and they bounce back like nothing ever happened. And this little girl, let me tell you, she's all about horses. She's all about rodeo. She's the black sheep of the family because she's country is country, and that's what she wants to do with her life. So amen for that, and good for her for going on, But for my dad as well, he's doing great. So thank you for everybody that's tuned in, commented, thoughts, prayers, all that good stuff. I appreciate it. So with that, we're going to get to this week's guest. He is an Army veteran as well, but he's also in law enforcement, and he has been for a very long time. And I asked this gentleman on the show because he's gone through something about 10 years ago that is very similar to what a lot of our veterans go through when they go to war, when they go to battle, they deploy. And it comes down to, and I'm going to preface this with this show is probably not for children, absolutely. But there are going to be some possible triggers in this show. We're going to be talking about law enforcement shooting of an individual at a store, something that it changes a person's life. And it's something that our veterans experience when they're deployed and they have to take that life. The military does not train them for what comes after, right? And if you talk about it and you try to ask for the help, then you start getting that stigma of, well, now I'm not going to be able to deploy anymore because they think something's mentally wrong with me, or, whatever the case may be, they might kick you out. A lot of that actually happens in our law enforcement as well. There's that stigma around them as well. So my guest this week is Adam Meyers. He is a current, I believe, police captain with the Hartford Township Police Department. He has created he's the founder of Stop the Threat, Stop the Stigma, and we'll get more into that. And we actually have that live 911 call that we're going to listen to. So again, if you're the faint of heart, or if that's something that you don't want to listen to, that's perfectly fine. Tune out for a few minutes when we get there, or catch up later on. But this week, I'm going to get into our interview of the week with Adam Meyers.
The interview of the week is brought to you by Jersey Mike's, a sub above.
That little issue there. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm glad you could be here because, like I just said, you experienced something about 10 years ago that a lot of our veterans have experienced, and it's very similar coming from law enforcement, military, and the after effect, and that's something that they don't train you for. So I'm glad you're here to kind of give us that perspective and maybe a little insight into what's going on with our current law enforcement these days. So, thanks again for coming on.
You're absolutely right, John. Yeah, you're absolutely right. They train us. They train us well, just like they train us well in the military. But the after effect involving critical incidents or taking somebody's life, they don't really train us in how to deal with that. They may say, hey, these are some resources available to you, and how many of us really reach out for those resources? Because what you mentioned earlier, that stigma associated with mental health. And I suffered in silence for 6 years. It took me about 6 years to get back on track. And a lot of that did have to do with the stigma and figuring, I could just keep going. Everything will fall into place. Everything will work its way out. and I'll be fine. But I wasn't. I really truly needed that help, but I wasn't willing to reach out. I was only willing to try to figure it out myself, and that just didn't work for me.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's all too common. They teach you to go into the ward. They don't teach you how to get out of it and everything that comes after that. So, we'll get a little bit into that, but why don't you, I'll give you a couple minutes to kind of introduce yourself. You've got a long career in law enforcement. Kind of run us through all the different roles that you had, especially, being in the Army as well, a fellow veteran. Kind of tell us who Adam is.
Sure thing. My name's Adam Meyers, born and raised in the city of Racine, which is in Wisconsin. Racine's located between Chicago, Illinois, and Milwaukee, Wisconsin. All my life, I wanted to be a cop. When I was a little boy, I would run up to the windows every time I would hear a siren whiz by the house. And my parents said I called that cop car an car because of the siren, an car, like the siren noise. And then they said the first time I saw a police officer get out of the car, I said, an car man. I want to grow up and be an car man. So I did what I thought was necessary to reach that goal. I graduated from high school. After high school, I went to college and secured a degree in criminal justice. And then after that, I joined the Army, military police, 95 Bravo, went to basic and AIT in Fort McClellan, Alabama. And then I was stationed at Fort Bliss, Texas in El Paso, my entire 5-year active duty in the Army. And once that finished, I was married at the time and had a daughter. We decided to move back home and just start life as mom and dad of a newborn. And then we had another daughter. I have 2 daughters. They're 27 and 24 now. My oldest is Sydney Marie. My youngest is Peyton Elizabeth. And I was lucky enough to get hired by the City of Racine Police Department, where it all started, where the dream started. It was great. And throughout my career, I was a third shift evidence technician, which I absolutely loved. It was pretty challenging, but it got me involved in a lot of the major crimes, the drive-bys, the gang incidents, the murders, one being a triple homicide, you name it. I mean, all the stuff you kind of see on TV nowadays, all the cool stuff, all the fun stuff. But after a while, I really started becoming callous to that. And when I would respond to calls and I would see somebody who had been shot and killed, I kind of just started looking at them as if it was just a body. And I didn't like that, because I knew, even though maybe they were a gangbanger, and we all understand that, hey, if you live that kind of lifestyle, it may catch up to you. And I get that. But, there was one time that I was investigating a homicide that occurred inside a bar. And I remember walking in through the side door of the bar and putting my evidence technician gear down. And I kind of looked to the right and I saw this deceased guy laying halfway in and halfway out of a men's bathroom with the door propped. And I was like, all right, let's get to it. Let's start working and processing the scene. And I didn't like that, because that was still somebody's son. That could have been somebody's father. And I just started becoming callous to that. And then I started looking for another job. And at the time, my wife, currently ex-wife, but my wife and I moved up north about 3.5 hours away. And I found another police officer job, which I liked. About a year after I took that position, we got a divorce. So I kind of became a statistic, like a lot of first responders, police officers, military. They go through hardships in their relationships or divorce. And I just continued to stay with that police department. And then in 2016 is when my critical incident happened. So,
yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's kind of funny you mentioned the statistic of divorce and everything. And, coming from the military, you're aware that there's 2 or 3 things you need to have to be a veteran, right? That's a DD-214, a divorce, and bad credit.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
Yeah.
Everything comes in threes, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately, yeah. But So, I'm not the most knowledge on policing, but I do have a associate's degree in criminal justice. I work for the city, so I work with local law enforcement as well. I hired the police chief here. He ended up being our city manager for a little while. We also, one of our cops is now the county sheriff, who took our police chief to be anyways. So I know a little bit about the law enforcement and things like that. So I kind of understand where you're coming from in the fact that even though you got to go out there and do your job, yes, these are other people's sons, daughters, brothers, sisters, mothers, and sometimes that can take a toll on you, and that's where that mental health starts coming in when it starts happening all too often, especially in the high crime cities, right? These things are happening day after day after day, and it's tough, but. So let's, because I think this next part, we're going to get a little long. So we're going to take a quick break real quick. And then when we come back, I'm going to give this minute to the people to let y'all know after this music video, we're going to listen, and maybe you can explain this a little bit better, but on your website, you have the 911 call, and it's pieced together because as people don't know, there's a recording between the caller and dispatch. There's a recording between you and dispatch. And so you kind of pieced all this together to tell that full story. Is that what happened on this?
Exactly. That was actually a piece of evidence initially for the district attorney. When after my shooting, I was placed on administrative leave pending the investigation. And that when you listen to the 911 call, there's a date, time, and stamp before you hear conversations between dispatch and the person who called 911, dispatch, and myself, and between me and other officers. So it kind of gives you a step-by-step or a play-by-play as to what happened. And, initially it wasn't a very emergent call, but as you listen to it, you can hear how it becomes more and more emergent and how the call, progresses and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we come back, we're going to listen to that, and then we're going to get your thoughts on, how did everything unfold after that? Because I'm sure it wasn't easy. So we'll be right back after this quick video. All right, welcome back to Full Speed Ahead After Battle. If you're just now tuning in, my guest tonight is Captain Adam Meyers of the Hartford Township Police Department. And that video was brought to you by Dietired. We are doing a collaboration, MBR and Dietired Bands doing a collaboration on t-shirts to help raise awareness and money for veteran suicide, mental health awareness. So make sure you check out the MBR website to get your shirt there. So this is the part of the show, and this is the first time I've done this, and I'm going to say that viewer discretion is advised, and you'll see why. It's here on the website as well. I'm going to bring that up. This is the live 911 call from Adam Meyers incident almost 10 years ago, and we are going to listen to it. I've got some specific spots that I want to listen to, but we're going to start off with just the beginning to kind of, for viewers to understand, this didn't start off as serious as it ended. This was just, at the beginning, it was just a run-of-the-mill 911 call. So here we go.
5:10 p.m., 46 seconds, April 8, 2016.
You have reached the voicemail box of 71523099199.
Hi, this is the Chippewa County Sheriff's Department calling, and I just had a 911 call from your phone. If you could please give us a call back on 911 if you have any emergency, or dial our non-emergency line, 715-726-7701. Press option 7. Thank you. Chippewa County 911.
Hi, this is Lisa Bradley. I'm calling about one of our clients from Northern Center.
Okay.
We're at Walmart with her refusing to leave, and when I called my supervisor at work, they told me I had to call you guys to come and help assist us getting her back to Northern Center.
Okay. Where in the lot are you?
We're not in the lot. We're in the store.
In the store?
Yes, and she can be a very violent person, so we're going to have to get somebody here to help us.
Okay. Where in the store are you?
We're back while we're walking. She's walking. We're walking toward the electronics now.
Okay, hold on a second.
All right, let's skip ahead just real quick.
Five 14 p.m., 28 seconds, April 8, 2016.
Hello?
Yes.
She's opening the knife now in the store. We don't know what to do with it.
In the sporting goods part?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on one second.
All right, so that was there. The caller was advising dispatch that this person was opening a knife in the store there.
Five 15 p.m., 31 seconds, April 8, 2016.
Are they still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
She has a knife in her hand now.
Okay, is she threatening people with it?
Yes, she's walking right towards everybody.
Okay.
Five 15 p.m., 41 seconds, April 8, 2016.
She is in possession of a knife and is threatening people with it.
She's by the dog food now. She's wrecking bags of weed.
She's doing what?
She's wrecking the bags of weed feed.
Who's that yelling?
It was the cop.
Okay.
He just got it. He got it.
Okay, hold on a second.
Five 17 p.m., 5 seconds, April 8, 2016.
She's currently buying that dog food.
5:17 p.m. 27 seconds, April 8, 2016.
276 County, shots fired. Law enforcement, shots fired. Send EMS.
And for sending EMS, shots fired.
All right. I am going to go ahead and stop that right there. And Adam, if you would kind of, we heard the piecing together and how it started off, somewhat simple and how it kind of escalated. And I think we got a pretty good idea of how it went through with that call, but walk us through your perspective of that whole thing.
Sure. It was Friday, April 8th, 2016, at about 5:15 p.m. It was a busy Friday afternoon. I was at the police department working on a retail theft report when I was dispatched to our local Walmart. And initially it was a 911 hang-up call, and the dispatcher contacted the 911 caller and left a voice message because nobody would answer the phone. And then finally they were able to make contact with this person and keep them on the line. This person was one of two chaperones that was out with. Her name was Melissa. She was a mental health patient at a state-run mental health facility in a state mental health facility in adjacent community. And it's my understanding that she received a good behavior pass. So she left the facility. They went over to a restaurant called Culver's and had something to eat there, and then went across the street to Walmart and did some shopping. Now, when the chaperones told Melissa it was time to leave, she refused to leave and went back to the sporting goods section, where she ripped open a hatchet and then started walking around the store and threatening customers. Now, initially, when I got the call, it wasn't a very emergent call. They advised me that this person is inside Walmart. The chaperones need assistance from police with removing her. And that's not a big deal. We do that all the time. We go to restaurants, retail stores, people's homes. It wasn't a big deal. So it wasn't emergent. So I walked out the back of the police department. I jumped in my squad car and I started driving to Walmart at a normal rate of speed. No lights, no sirens, anything like that. And as you could hear from the 911 call, the 911 operator kept the chaperone on the line and kind of relayed to me exactly what was going on, kind of giving me the play-by-play. And it started becoming more and more emergent. I heard that she was trying to open up a knife from the packaging. Then she was in possession of a knife. Now she's threatening customers. So that's when I started stepping it up. That's when I turned on my lights and sirens and started traveling to Walmart at a higher rate of speed. Now, Walmart was about 1.5 miles away from the police department, so it didn't take me, I got there fairly quickly. And I remember pulling into the parking lot, and like I said earlier, it was a Friday, 5:15 p.m., a lot of people at the store, a lot of people in the parking lot. Nobody would get out of the way. I remember thinking, will you please frickin' move? There's an emergency inside the store. I really need to get in there as soon as I possibly can. And people were just walking in the parking lot, kind of like, hey, look at that police car. What's going on? And if you're familiar with Walmart, usually Walmarts have two entrances. One is the general merchandise entrance, and the other one is the grocery entrance. And I knew that she was walking up towards the front of the store from the sporting goods section. So I kind of had a visual as to where she is probably walking. So I decided to park my squad car right in front of the general merchandise entrance. And I turned my sirens off, but I left my red and blue lights going because I wanted people to know that if they were parking in the parking lot and started walking up to that entrance, they'd see my squad car with the lights going and think, maybe I shouldn't go through those doors. Maybe I should stay away from that area. So once I parked the squad, I got out. I drew my weapon because I didn't know where she was. I knew she was in possession of a knife. I knew she was walking towards the front of the store. She was being threatening, and I didn't want to meet her right there within the doorway. She was not there, but I did come across a man and a woman that were standing there, and I looked at them and I said, where is she? And they pointed down towards the lawn and garden, health and beauty aisle, the intersection there. So I ran down there and I made contact with her. And when I first saw her, her back was facing towards me. And then I identified myself and gave her some verbal commands. And that's when she turned and faced me. And I realized that's not a knife, that's a hatchet, and not that a knife would have been any less threatening, But I was thinking of like a pocket knife that a lot of us carry just right there in our pockets. But when she turned and faced me, I saw that hatchet and I thought, okay. And I started giving her multiple verbal commands to stop, to drop the hatchet. She continued to advance towards me. She wouldn't listen to me. And I decided to shoot. And I shot her twice. One round went in and out of her right leg. And that round actually continued down the aisle behind her and lodged in the kick plate of a sliding door that goes out to lawn and garden. The other round struck her kind of center mass right here, and then she fell to the ground. And I know I did the right thing. No question. Nobody can convince me otherwise, but I know that when I pulled the trigger, I changed lives. Not only did I take Melissa's life because she did die, later on, but I changed everybody's life. I changed Melissa's family, her mom, her dad, her 6-year-old daughter will never be able to see her again. The people who witnessed the shooting, because there was about 12 witnesses that watched the shooting, their lives are going to be forever changed. My life was changed. Even somebody clear across the store, maybe picking out fruit in the produce aisle, who heard the gunshots. Everybody kind of has a story now that, hey, I was at Walmart this one Friday and the cop shot somebody. So I understand the severity of it. It's not something that I take lightly. All I can say is those 2 shots were so loud. They reminded me of broken speakers. I mean, a lot of us shoot inside of a range when we practice shoot, and we have earmuffs on and ear protection. And a lot of us may even shoot outside, but when you shoot inside a building, that's a whole different sensation. I mean, it was very loud. And I remember after pulling the trigger, I remember looking around to the witnesses that were there, and I asked them, please check yourself and please check each other, because I wanted to make sure that my rounds only hit Melissa and nobody else. And then I saw a Walmart employee there, and I said, will you please get on the intercom and ask if there's a doctor or a nurse? Will you please ask them to come over and help? And there just happened to be a nurse, veteran affairs nurse, in the light bulb aisle. And she's like, I'm a nurse. And she came over and helped until the ambulance showed up. But everything just seemed surreal. And I knew where I was. I knew what I had done. But it just seemed surreal because I shopped at that Walmart. I lived in that community. That's not something you go to work and think that, hey, today I'm going to go to work and shoot somebody. I mean, when you get into the military or you become a police officer, you train and it could be a possibility that you may have to shoot somebody or shoot and kill somebody. But in law enforcement, it probably won't happen. But this was my reality now. This did happen. This was my reality. And I remember when everything was done at Walmart, my field training officer, my corporal, he escorted me out of Walmart, and we jumped in the squad and we headed back to the police department. And while I was sitting in the conference room, everything still seemed so surreal. I mean, I was so thirsty because of that stress, and I would down tons of water, and nothing would quench my thirst. No matter how much I drank, nothing would quench my thirst. And the entire time, I was never worried that I did the wrong thing. I was never worried that I wasn't going to be cleared or go back to work. I guess I was still in shock, trying to think, wow, this really just happened. I know I did the right thing, kind of playing it over in my head. And at the police department, we had the Professional Police Association arrive, attorneys arrived, the village police departments, attorneys arrived. And once I was clear from the police department, I was told I could go home. And I had a take-home squad car, and I was still in full uniform. And they did take my weapon, which is protocol. They do that for evidentiary reasons. But they said you could go home, and I'm thinking, this is great. I walked out of the police department. I jumped in my squad car, and right before I started driving home, I reached up in my visor because that's where my cell phone was, because I wanted to call my mom and dad because they lived about 3.5, 4 hours away. I wanted to let them know what happened, what I had just done, because I didn't want them to hear about it on social media or the news,
Right.
or text message, or anything like that. So after I spoke with my mom and dad, I started driving home, and I don't remember the drive home. I lived about 2 miles away from the police department in that community. I don't remember the drive home. I could probably tell you what road I took home, but I don't remember it. And I do remember pulling up in the driveway of my house and getting out of my squad and walking into the front door of my house. And the first thing I did was I knelt down next to my love seat and I prayed that Melissa wouldn't die. I didn't want her to die. And, you know, I didn't think she was going to. She was a bigger woman, but not just because of her size. You know, when she was on the floor at Walmart, she was talking to another officer, answering questions. She spoke to paramedics. It just didn't cross my mind that she would die. And, you know, after I prayed, I went in my room and I took all my gear off. And I remember sitting at the foot of my bed, and I felt so heavy. Even with all my gear off, I felt so heavy. And then once I was done there, I ordered a pizza. I turned on the news because I wanted to see what they were talking about me and what was going on, kind of the news coverage. And once that was over, I went to bed. I slept like a rock. I probably some of the best sleep I've had in a long time. And maybe that's because of the adrenaline dump. I don't know.
Right.
But I slept really, really well.
Yeah, because, you know, let's put that into perspective. We're talking about that adrenaline dump that people don't know. When you go through a stressful situation like that, or you're in battle with the military, people think you're crazy because you're just going to go straight to sleep and you're going to sleep so good. But when you get done with all that stuff rushing through you, that almost just drains your body, right? Of anything emotional. Yep. You don't feel pain. You don't feel anything. And all you want to do is you're tired now. You just want to sleep. And so, you know, that's why you think you felt that. So now let's get into the aftermath. And I'm not talking about, you know, for those that don't know, you know, you said your lawyer, the lawyers, everybody came in, they cleared you. I'm sure there's some other investigations just to make sure everything's valid. Yep. Let's talk about the aftermath as far as your mental health of someone that goes through that type of situation. How long did it take you to start feeling the way that you felt? And you sent me a lot of pictures of your apartment and, you know, showing me that way. And I'm going to pull up this hate mail that you sent, you know, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about that, but walk us through the mental health aspect of you personally, you know, days after that, weeks after that. How did that affect you mentally?
Right. Well, as you can see, I'm wearing an exterior vest with a tactical patch, and you can remove that. And, you know, I was a mess for 6 years, and my poor coping strategies were alcohol, casual sex, and drugs. And you know, that first month that I was on administrative leave, you know, pending the investigation, I was drinking my wine. I mean, I collected wine before my shooting, and I was going through a large amount of wine at that time. And then after I got, you know, drank through all my wine, I started going to liquor, you know, because it got me where I wanted to go quicker. And when I say I abused alcohol, I abused alcohol. I just didn't have a six pack. Yeah. You know, what I did was I have a simulated wine glass here, and I would pour a glass of wine and I would add, you know, NyQuil, or I would even add ZzzQuil to it, or any kind of pills or any kind of liquid to make my own cocktail. There was one time I even reached into the medicine cabinet and took my daughter's prescription cough medicine that had codeine in it, because that, you know, it's a prescribed, you know, drug, and you add that to alcohol, and the label says don't mix with alcohol, but hey, you know, it made me feel all warm and fuzzy and good, and it helped me sleep, so I did. You know, another thing that I did is I have a 750 milliliter bottle of vodka here. I would easily drink this in 30 minutes or less, and I wouldn't make my own cocktail. I would drink it either straight from the bottle or over some rocks, and you know, 30 minutes or less, and I would just be blackout drunk and sleep the day away. no matter where I would go, any kind of social event, grocery shopping, even to maybe go to the post office to get some stamps, to mail some bills out, I would stop by the local gas station and I would buy 2 or 3 of these Fireball cinnamon whiskeys, and I would drink them, right in my car, right in the parking lot. There was a gas station near my house, and I went there all the time. And I would buy 2 or 3 of these, and I would drink them right in my car, and either throw them, in the back seat of my car when they were empty, or I'd throw them out the window while I was driving to my destination. And I rationalized that it would take about 30 minutes for the alcohol to start impairing me, and then by the time that the alcohol started kicking in, I'd be where I was driving to, and that's just wrong. I am so lucky that I didn't crash, hurt somebody, kill somebody, or even myself, or even be arrested for drunk driving. I got very lucky. And another poor coping strategy, I mentioned casual sex, and I would meet women online specifically for sex. It was mutually agreed that we'd have sex, and sometimes after meeting them for 30 minutes we'd be having sex. And for me, sex is wonderful, it's great, it feels good, it's playful, but I was basically just looking for the next person to have sex with because of that dopamine rush that, when you meet somebody for the first time, you kind of have that butterflies, you feel good. And when you constantly meet new people all the time, you're constantly having that. And I had a routine when women would come over to my house. What I would do is I have a large thing of a Red Bull energy drink. I would drink one of these. And then what I would also do is drink a couple of these little vodka shots, because the energy drink would give me that energy. The alcohol would kind of mellow me out, take away the inhibitions, and then I'd be ready to have sex. And I also bought condoms that kind of desensitize the feeling of sex, so the sex would last longer. And I remember there was one time I was laying in bed with a woman after we had sex, and I just thought to myself, Adam, you have to knock this off. I started not liking myself. And, with the sex, I was always worried about catching an STD or getting a woman pregnant. But even all of that wasn't enough for me to stop. It took years for me to slow down. And just because of the feeling, it felt good. It was exciting. And then, with I say drugs, and I tried marijuana for the first time. A lot of people are like, yeah, it's only pot, it ain't no big deal. But to me, it is, because all my life I wanted to be a cop. So I stayed away from that stuff. And, before I got into the Army, I had to go to the MEP station in Milwaukee, and they're asking all these questions and everything. And they even asked me, have I ever done marijuana? And I said, I've never done that. And they were kind of like, You can tell they didn't believe me.
Yeah.
But I had never done drugs. But after my shooting, I didn't care. I was looking for the next thing to numb the pain, to take away my thoughts, my feelings, to make me feel good, even if it's momentarily. I was looking for the next best thing, and that's an alcohol, casual sex, and drugs, including prescription drugs, abusing that helped me for a little bit. I mean, it made things worse. Right. It didn't really help me. Momentarily it did, but I did that for years. And I'm very lucky that self-destructive, that dangerous behavior, I didn't accidentally end my life or end somebody else's life because of my poor decision making.
Yeah. And so, you talk about you're trying to kill that inner pain. You're trying to get rid of those memories so you can sleep. I went through a lot of the same thing when I left the military. And yeah, that is definitely a struggle. So while you're going through all this, are you still working as a law enforcement officer, or you're still working day in and day out while you're doing all this, and that just takes a toll on you. And when you're out there on your calls, you may not be drinking and stuff then, but your body's tired, your brain is tired, and so that leads into the question of the stigma. A lot of law enforcement don't want to go ask for that help because then they might take that your badge away, right? And is that what happened with you? Because you didn't want to seek the professional help because
Right.
you're afraid to lose your job?
You're exactly right, Josh. I mean, initially I went to therapy. I saw a therapist, and I remember the first 45 minutes, the first time I talked to a therapist, the first 45 minutes, I'm like, wow, this feels good. I'm venting, I'm getting it out. But then I left and I'm thinking, that was a complete waste of time. This person has no idea what I went through.
Right.
They have no idea what I'm talking about. They're only doing it because they're getting paid. So I would go a few times and then take a few months off and then go a couple more times and then not go anymore. And I would get a letter in the mail saying you missed your appointment. And I'm thinking, whatever, I don't have to go to therapy. I'm fine. If I just keep going, everything will fall into place and I'll be perfectly fine. And I was wrong. And I think it does have a lot to do with that stigma, because there were many times that I went to work that I shouldn't have been there. My chief at the time was very supportive. Almost immediately, he reached out to the media and said that he supported me. And I actually saw a quote of his online. So I printed it out and I put it in a frame, and it was sitting on my desk. And it said, I think he believed that he had no support him. And I knew my chief, I knew he would BS in me, because I would hear him defend me and support me when he didn't know I was there. I could be around the corner or down the hall from his office, and I would hear him defending me. And I'm like, this guy's genuine. He's not BSing me. He truly supports me. And that means a lot. I mean, when you're supervisor, when you're chief of police, when you know they support you, that means a lot, especially when you're having a crappy day.
Yeah. So that's one thing that we definitely need in law enforcement and veterans when you go through these types of situations, is you need that support system, right? Whether it's your boss or a wife or your kids. And, unfortunately, they don't receive the training to help you with that support system, right? Because they're struggling just as much as you are. Like, what do I say around him? Do I got to walk on eggshells? Or, so unfortunately, like you said, just because that shooting that day changed a lot of people's lives, the aftermath also changes a lot of people's lives. Your family, your brothers in arms, like, can I count on this guy now? And so, we definitely need those support systems out there. And I'm glad that we're getting onto that, because you have created this new thing now, the stop the threat, stop the stigma. And so, because we're talking about it more and more these days, right? We're talking about the mental health more, but there's still that stigma out there that, if I talk about it, I'm going to lose my job. Or if I talk about it with a therapist, it's not going to help, right? Because these people go through 20 years of school, and then now they're going to sit there and tell me, how do I deal with a shooting? Right. And that's why we feel that they don't understand what I'm talking about. I'm not listening to you. You have no idea what I'm talking about. How are you going to help? So let's talk about stop the threat, stop the stigma. What is this about? How are we helping our law enforcement nowadays with the aftermath of situations like this?
Yeah, I started speaking about my critical incident 3 years after, and I was a hypocrite. I was telling everybody you should do this and this is helpful, while I was still struggling, while I was still alcohol, casual sex, and drugs. But I kind of came off as if everything was okay, and I established Stop the Threat, Stop the Stigma in hopes that it will inspire other law enforcement professionals, those who work in the public safety profession, to speak about their mental health and to reach out if they need it. I tell everybody I see a therapist. I still see a therapist every 5 o'clock, every Monday at 5 p.m. I'm sitting on a couch talking to my therapist. I absolutely love her. I finally found the right kind of therapist, the one that understands me and is trained with first responders. That's important. But there's so many resources out there. It's okay to talk about your mental health. You're not alone. You don't have to suffer in silence. And, as I said earlier, when I first went to that first therapist, I thought, oh, she's only here because she's getting paid. And But there are so many people out there that genuinely care about you, that have gone through what you're going through and want to support you and want to help you. And they don't care about getting paid. They may be getting paid, but their heart's in the right place. They want to help you. And, you know, technology is great nowadays. You can hop on your phone. You can hop on a laptop. You can Google stuff. It's so easy to get help, and there's so much help out there. And, you know, when I established Stop the Threat, Stop the Stigma, that's exactly why I did it, because I knew that I wasn't the only one that was going through what I was going through, what I had gone through.
Right.
But there is a stigma. There is a stigma associated with that. I remember the stigma when I was in the Army. They always told us, suck it up and drive on. They didn't want to hear about our issues. And even when I became a police officer for the first time, I remember I assisted with investigating a triple homicide. 7 people were shot, 3 were killed. It was a gang shooting. And I remember weeks after that, the police officer support team came around and started talking to some of the officers that were involved on that incident. And I was doing fine. But after I've gone through what I've gone through with my shooting, I look back at that. And if I was struggling, there is no way I would have told them that I was struggling. Why? Because this was my dream job in my hometown, that all I ever wanted to do was be a cop. I wasn't going to tell them, oh, I'm struggling, I'm drinking, I have bad dreams. There's no way. Because like you said earlier, we worry about losing our job, our livelihood. We worry about not being able to support our family, our wife, our kids, paying our house payment, our boat payment, all the other toys we have. So we're not willing to reach out. We just figure, hey, if I keep going, it'll work its way out. Yeah. And it usually doesn't. You need professional help, and it's okay.
Absolutely. You know, like veterans, many organizations, VFW, American Legion, there's those groups out there for those veterans to get together and have that camaraderie and share that story. And now with your organization, Stop the Threat, Stop the Stigma, you're doing the same thing for law enforcement, right? Giving a place for them to go to actually talk with somebody that's been there and done that and been through it. And so somebody can actually relate to you. So look, we're coming to the end of the show this week. Adam, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story, especially the mental health aspect of it. But I want to give you just a quick minute to send out your words, your wisdom, whatever you want, to the law enforcement out there that may see this and are struggling with some of the similar things. What do you want to put out there to the world?
I've been a police officer for 24 years. I know that there's a stigma associated with mental health. It's getting better because we're talking about it. I think it's always going to be there, but it's getting better. Please get help if you need it. Please reach out. Please support your brothers and sisters if they need help. It's okay. You're not alone. You may feel alone, but you're not alone. There's so many resources out there. And, you know, I see a therapist, and I'll just end it by saying, which is kind of taboo to some people, I also take medication. Here's 20 milligrams of Lexapro. Every morning I wake up and take a pill. It's okay. If you're struggling with mental health, please reach out. Even if you just feel off and you don't understand what you're going through, reach out and say that, hey, man, something's not right. I need some help. I don't know what to do, and work with somebody to get that help. There's so many people out there that genuinely care about you and want to help you. You're not alone, and you don't have to suffer in silence.
Yeah. Well, Adam, thanks again for coming on Full Speed Ahead, sharing your story. Good luck in the rest of your future career, and I hope that this message finds those law enforcement officers out there, because they go through a lot of stuff day in and day out. And I know that you're going to be able to help them. So thank you so much. And I appreciate your story. All right. Have a great evening. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap it up for another episode of Full Speed Ahead here. As you heard from Captain Adam Meyers, law enforcement, much like the military, right? Some of the things that we go through can wear you down. Doesn't change just your life, changes a lot of people's lives around you, whether it's people you work with, your family. You need that support system. Very similar stories, right? But again, it all falls back on having that support system. It's okay to ask for help because you can't do this alone, right? You can't take care of this alone. So reach out there. If you're in law enforcement, you're seeing this video, reach out to the website, Stop the Threat, Stop the Stigma. Adam would be happy to talk to you or, help you, kind of lead the way and point you in the right direction and get you there. If you're a veteran, reach out to me, reach out to NVR. We'd be happy to do the same thing. So next week, I know all of our guests are great, amazing guests, but next week I'm very excited because on next week's episode, we have the American Sons documentary Q&A. Now, to be able to get registered for this documentary film, to watch it from December 18th to December 22nd, you've got to be in the Texas VFW Suicide Awareness page on Facebook. No, you don't have to be in Texas to be a member of it. You don't have to be a veteran. This group is all about providing resources, mostly in the state of Texas, but there's other resources to those people in need, whether it's veterans, civilians. We've got VA reps, we've got clinical technicians, we've got VFW reps, all kinds of people. Go join the page, register there. Next week live, we'll be doing a Q&A with the director and producers and brother or sister of one of the Marines in that film. If you haven't seen it, American Sons is about a group of Marines that come back from Afghanistan. One does not make it back from Afghanistan. There's a story of suicide, drug addiction, the VA failing them. I know we talked about that before. So join that Facebook group. Register to watch it, then tune in live next week on Full Speed Ahead, and you'll be able to either send in those questions ahead of time or ask them live and learn why they made this documentary. So that's all for this transmission from me, your certified master coach here on NVR. And remember, the war is over, but the cleanup is mandatory. Don't wait for the damage report to seek the shipyard. Drop the anchor, stop the drift, and go make the necessary repairs. Full speed ahead, after battle. Dismissed.
Life is like a duck. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. Here at Military Broadcast Radio, we're teaming up with our friends at Die Tired, the veteran-friendly music band spreading strength, resilience, and mental health awareness, one shirt at a time.
And check this out. Their brand new shirts feature broadcast beaker right on the breast pocket. A reminder that you can weather the storm, and you're never alone.
Shirts are only $25, and proceeds support giving veterans a voice. MBR's mission to teach veterans how to podcast and videocast. Because when our vets are talking, they're not overthinking. They're not second-guessing. Together, we stop the 22 stigma. Grab your shirt today at mbradio.us and hit the shop. Or go directly to toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband. That's toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband.
Suit up, stand strong.
Remember, we're unduckable together.
You're built tougher than the storm.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.